Hi everyone. Today's question I'm going to answer is, should you raise the rents every year? And my answer to that is definitely yes. If you are in a market for sure where the rent increases are limited, if you're in a market where you can have fixed term leases and at the end of that lease you can renegotiate the rent, then it might be a little bit different because then you can see what's happening in the marketplace, what is the market rent at, and you can adjust it, and you and the future or current tenant can agree to have a future contract and get into business again, or you can choose to rent it at a higher price that may be the new market price to another tenant. However, if you're in a market like BC, like Vancouver, where we cannot evict a tenant when you're in a lease, be it month to month, because of higher rent. And so because of that, it is really important to raise the rent every single year by the allotted amount. And simply, it doesn't perhaps feel important because right now I think the increase is less than 2%. Again, I'm not a property manager, so I'm not giving you property management advice. I'm speaking from the mindset of a realtor and personally from an investor. And so if the increase is less than 2% that you can generate right now, it might not feel like a big deal. If your rent's $1,000, it's only $20 more. The challenge is if you don't raise the rent over 5 years, you're going to be like 10% behind. Inflation of the expenses is going to eat into any profit you have and potentially put you into a negative situation. And if you don't raise rent for a couple of years with the tenant, you're building a habit and a style where the tenant believes you're never going to raise the rent. And so you might not raise the rent for 2-3 years, raise it on the 4th year, and it has almost a more of a negative impact on the tenant's experience because they feel like, what's the problem? Why did you not raise the rent for a couple of years and now you're raising a rent? And that's so uncomfortable because market rent has gone up so much and I can't find anything close to what you're charging. So a positive could become a negative in that situation. And then finally, if you don't stay current with market rents and you decide to rent or rather sell your property, it's actually a bigger negative for your tenant because if you're 10% behind in market rent, the future buyer probably can't be an investor because that investor would have to inherit that tenant, and they're likely not going to do that because it's 10% below market, which quickly can happen in 3 to 5 years. The reason so it's not a benefit to the tenant, and the only way an investor would buy that property is if they got a clear discount on the purchase price, which is not a benefit to you. So to answer your question, raise your rent every year and protect yourself against inflation and make it a win-win relationship between you and the tenant.